If you're making a 2D game in Unity and you need a way to implement player controls, then keep watching. So to install the input system, you're going to want to go into the package manager and search up input and find it up here and just install it. And the reason why you want to have the input system rather using the old one is because before, when you would want to move or jump or whatever, you would have to constantly be asking in the update function, has this key been pressed? And that will be being called for every second, how many frames. So 60 frames per second, 60 times every second, that will be asked. And quite a lot of the time, especially with like jumping or shooting, that's not going to be happening every second. It's just going to be a waste. But what this does is it will first tell the system at the beginning, tell me when such and such key is pressed, and then it will get told when it has been pressed. It will know what to do, and in a bit I'll show you how we implement them. So now to make a player input, go down here and you can call it whatever you want, really, just whatever seems appropriate to you. Let's now open it up and drag it up to here. Again, whatever is appropriate for what you are making. Now we've done all the boring part, this is where it gets more interesting. In actions, this will be something like moving, jumping, shooting, whatever. We're going to call it what it is right now. Let's move. And now we connect the binding to whatever it is. And this doesn't have to be something just on the keyboard. It's going to be any kind of input. So keyboard, mouse, I think even audio could work, but also game controllers or steering wheels, anything. So first off, we got to change it to a positive and negative because we're going to want to be able to go left and right. So quickly delete this up here. Okay, so negative is going to be when we want to go left. So A, you can search up A and find it and click it. Or when we do the positive one, what we could actually do is click listen and then click whatever input we want. If I'm going to click D, D will come up, and it's that simple. Now let's go and add jump, and again search up space, and here it is. And then all we've got left to do is click save asset. It's that easy. And you can add multiple things. So for example, if on move you wanted to add binding, add something to do with a game controller. So I just want to show you how whatever function is assigned to this action will be called when any of these. So anything to do with the keyboard, but also now any joystick connected. And then now we can get to the code. Now that we're in the script, I'm going to first of all remove the start and update functions, because we're going to not need either of those. I'm going to now fast forward to connecting the script to the input stuff we've just set up earlier. Okay, so now we have set up the beginning of what we need. Starting up here, just made it so you require whatever script is attached to, you need a play input. Just down here, I have the play input just assigned to this variable, which we attach to here. And you might be wondering, why do we need an awake when we could just use the start from before? And it's because I want this function to be called before this one. And what this one does is when it's enabled, you set up these connections. I haven't got them here, but we will soon make some functions which will be called whenever these are performed or cancelled. And what it means by that is whenever if you click D, calls move, it will call this, because it's being performed. But as soon as you stop pressing D, it is cancelled, so it will call whatever functions assigned here. And then down here on disabled, it just does basically the opposite of this and just disattaches all of the functions to the events. Now let's go and make the events these are going to be attached to. We've now made the 3 functions. One for jumping, one for when the move button is performed, and one where the move button is cancelled. The only thing is now we're going to need to make it so they can keep on moving even when this is only called once. So it's not that this keeps on getting called whilst you're holding down the D key. This is only called once. What we're going to use is a coroutine, and a coroutine is something which is a bit like an update function where if it's true and if it's active, it will be kept on getting called. But as soon as you cancel it or stop it, it will stop. And that's why it's better than an update, because it'll only being run when you want it to be run, and then it will stop immediately, unlike an update which will be happening every frame game, even if the code inside of it never actually is needed. Like if it has an if statement and it's always false. So we're gonna now make that. Now we're back, and first of all, I forgot to earlier, so I've now actually added the functions which are getting called by these events up here, and you see where it's from. This will go there and there, and then that was obvious. So now I've down here made the coroutine function, and then the coroutine value up here, as well as some other values just for checking if it is moving, and then also just for move value, as well as a 2D rigid body which we'll be using to add stuff to the velocity to make the character move. And we are going to be using all that in these functions, and I'll now show you what next to be done. I've added the code which actually makes the movement happen, starting off with performed. It checks for context and it gets the float value from it, and what that means is basically that the reason why we need this is because this will either give us a negative number, and if you remember from before, A was negative and then D was positive, so we know which direction it needs to go in. It makes the m_f move value, whichever that one is, and then also just makes the boolean value is moving true, and then it first checks if the coroutine is or isn't already happening, and if it isn't, then it will start with coroutine, and then you'll put the coroutine function in these brackets. So moving down to here, while moving is true, it will add some force. This is why we want this value. If it's negative, what I mean by that is if it's negative and you're clicking A, you'll go left. If you're clicking D, that will give you a positive number, and that will make you move right. And then what this does is that it will basically make this never finish, so it will know that when it hits this, it'll want to run this again when it next happens, and if it didn't do this, then it'll get out of this curly bracket and it'll get to here, and once it's got past this point, it will stop on its own. But you can manually stop one, and that is up here. So the move cancelled, what the main thing it does is makes it so it's moving false, so you know it's not moving, and then checks if the coroutine is happening or not, and if it is happening, then it will stop the coroutine and set the coroutine to null. So now we have the code will actually make you move. Now let's go back to Unity and put it onto a game object and see it move. By the way, so if you're following along and you got an error, it's because I forgot to put some brackets here, so we'll quickly do that. Okay, so now we're in Unity. Let's quickly just throw down a square, make this long, and then quickly go down, and we'll actually also need to quickly add a box collider 2D, and then let's make a square because we're very original, and let's just throw this onto there. If you'll see, because I put the required things, it will automatically already have put a rigid body 2D, and then I've got to drag this over to here. Something I didn't mention actually, but I quickly put a serialized field value of a movement speed, so we can change the speed what it moves. So now and I forgot to put a collider on it. Let's just quickly do that. I'm very bad at remembering colliders clearly. Okay, so if you see, I clicked D and it went flying. What is the issue there? The issue is that there isn't a speed limit. It will just keep on moving. We need to go back to the code and quickly add a speed limit, which will mean it won't just continuously keep on adding force until it just flies off the screen. Now we've added a speed limit. I've got it as a vector2. You could probably just set as a float, but how I've done it is so there'll be a speed limit in for left and then one going right. That's why I've done it. And then down here, as it being implemented, just checks if the value is smaller or bigger than the velocity moving at, and then if it is going too fast, then it will just set it as whatever the speed limit is, just to make sure you're not maxing out. Now if we save it and go back to Unity, back in Unity, by the way, this error, the issue is that this needs to be up here. That should fix it, because all it was doing was when you turn it off, it would try and disconnect the connection to this, but this being higher up, this would have already got deleted, you could say. So that should fix it. Anyway, speed limit, let's just set it as -2 and then 2 when you go to run it. Now we're in it. We want to go faster, but it can't. Now we've done that, but we want to jump, right? Let's now go back into the code and add some stuff which will mean you can now jump. So I've added another value you can change in the editor, which will be the jump force, and then down here in the jump performed function, whenever you call this, it will just add some force going up, and it's as simple as that. So let's go back to Unity and see how it works. Don't forget to go into the script and just let's put 300 for now, and then give it a run and see how it works. And if it works at all, you can jump, cool, but there is an issue. You can jump even when you're not touching the ground. you're going to need to check if it's ground or not. Let's get back to a script and see what we can do. In the script, we have a value which is grounded, and if it's true, then it will mean that you can jump and it'll add force. But if it's false, it won't do anything. And that Boolean value is just up here. The only thing is, nothing's changing it. What we're going to have to do is have some kind of checker underneath the character to see if they are touching ground or not. Now let's go make another script and do that. So now we're in the grounded script. You know what to do. Get rid of start and update. We're not going to need them. But now we've got rid of a start and update, we can add some functionality to make it check if you are touching the ground or not. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to have a box underneath a player which is going to have a collider but turned into a trigger. It won't look weird and it won't make the player look like they're hovering because the trigger allows stuff to merge through another collider. And like a collider, on collision it has on trigger enter, so it'll call this function whenever something's entered and then call this when it's exited. So it can be when you've entered this, it will know that you've hit the ground as long as the game object has the tag ground, and then the same here, if it's left collision which that object is tagged as a ground, it will know. But now we need to tell a player, and what we're going to do is we're going to make an event. It's going to have an event here and it's going to call it, and in the player movement we're going to have a connection. It will call a function in the player movement when either of these has happened. Fast forward to now when I've added the code. Because we're having an event, we need to have using system. Here's the event, and in here is what kind of variable we're going to be passing through. It's going to be Boolean. The event is called onGrounded. So down here, when you hit the ground, it will invoke this event and pass true. And then when you have left the ground, it will invoke this event passing false. And then whatever this event is linked to, it will just tell them that you've hit and then you've left the ground. And the reason why you don't have this in the player movement is that this can be now used in anything which wants to detect. So if you're going to have an NPC or like an enemy or whatever, if they're going to want to jump, they're going to want to have this. So that's cool. So now going on to the player movement script, we're going to add a connection. Starting off down here, we have a function which is passed a Boolean value ground, and when this is called, it will get this ground value and it will just give it to is grounded. Now we have a function which is getting called, and up here we have a value which is going to be of the grounded script, and it will down here, if this is assigned something, if it isn't null, it will add, and then down here also remove that connection like we did up here. So it's the same. See, this is an event and this is an event, and it's just connecting that connection. Now we're going to go back to Unity and just show how it all works together. Now we're in Unity, we are going to want to add another box. Let's make another square because we really like squares today. Let's make it a little bit smaller, make it go just underneath the player, add another box collider, but make it a trigger. Let's just get a little bit more see-through so we see where it is, and we'll see that it'll go through, but it doesn't block the view too much. Just attach it onto the player, and let's just quickly add names so we aren't getting too confused by what things are. There we go. Now let's add the grounded to here. Yep. Okay, so now it has the grounded script. That means when we just drag this over onto the player, it gets a reference to the grounded script on the ground object, or otherwise known as square brackets 2. Next, we need to actually make this tag ground. We go into the tag, add a ground, and then hopefully it should all work. Fingers crossed. Okay, so I can jump when I hit the ground, but I can't jump mid-air if you can, and you probably can hear me clicking space. Now it all works. Crazily enough. And it is that easy. The cool thing is that right now this looks very simple because obviously it's just boxes jumping, moving left to right, but you can really expand upon using the input system because like I said, you can easily just add whatever you want. If you want to add shoot, if you want to add sprint, if you want to crouch, it's that easy. I hope you found this video useful and enjoyed it, and hopefully even learned something. If so, I'd appreciate it a lot if you could leave a like and maybe even subscribe. I plan to do more videos teaching stuff you can add in Unity, as well as some devlogs of what stuff I'm working on, and maybe even the occasional game jam. Thanks for watching. Bye.